I really embrace the idea of coming face to face or face to tentacle with an extraterrestrial. I can't think of anything more exciting than having a close encounter with another mind that's different from us.
First contact. It's a thought that either excites us or frightens us.
Think about it for a moment. If they can reach us, that means already they are several thousand years ahead of us in technology. And then, of course, the next step would be what happens if they want to take over.
What happens if or when this moment arrives?
If there ever is communication with extraterrestrial intelligence, being able to talk with animals is the kind of groundwork that might make that possible.
In the future, could breakthroughs in animal communication here on Earth provide the key to talking with alien life forms from beyond? Writing a new chapter in the history of the universe. On Life 2.0.
One day, and I think it will happen, perhaps in this century, we will make contact with an extraterrestrial civilization. And so I think it's going to be of prime importance for us to decode the language, because if we find out that they're more sophisticated than us, we want to know how advanced are they and what do they want.
Are we alone in the universe? It's a question we've all probably considered at one time or another.
I first began thinking about communicating with aliens, drafting my first messages when I was a teenager. I grew up in the 1960s when astronauts were going to the moon for the first time. And it sparked my imagination, and I thought, well, with us exploring the universe, maybe there's life out there we could make contact with. Hello, universe.
Dr. Douglas Vakoch is a psychologist and astrobiologist. He is also the founder of METI International, a nonprofit research group that is the only organization in the world currently working to message extraterrestrial life forms.
For over 50 years, astronomers have been engaged in SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, listening for signals from the stars. So far, we haven't found anything. But what if extraterrestrials are doing the same thing as us, simply listening and not transmitting? It could be a very quiet universe.
There's something called the Fermi paradox, which says if there is over 100 billion galaxies in the universe, and all of them have solar systems and planets, how come we haven't made contact yet?
One solution to the Fermi paradox is maybe the extraterrestrials are out there, even at nearby stars, but they're simply watching us, much like we watch animals in a zoo. It's called the zoo hypothesis. But imagine we go to the zoo and we're watching a zebra. All of a sudden it turns toward us and starts pounding out a series of numbers with its hoof. That would pull for a response. Certainly we would want to engage it. That's what we're trying to do with METI. Send powerful intentional signals to dozens of nearby stars, letting the extraterrestrials know not just that we're here, but that we want to make contact.
Not everyone agrees with METI's ideas. Scientists, politicians, and even the general public are split over just how good of an idea reaching out really is.
Some scientists say, what's all the fuss about? Ever since we first turned on our radio and TV antennas, we've been broadcasting our existence out there. But my attitude is, let's not tempt fate. I mean, we don't know if they know of our existence. Why advertise it? I'm a physicist, so I love the possibility of one day making contact with an extraterrestrial civilization. However, let's not be naive. In the past, there have been many unfortunate encounters between two civilizations of very different scale. Take a look at when Cortez met Montezuma in Mexico. The Aztec civilization was destroyed in a matter of months. That's why we have to know what they want.
But regardless of whether or not we should be reaching out, many people agree that the question of first contact is not if it will happen, but rather when. And that being able to talk to one another will be essential in determining exactly how this moment unfolds.
The great challenge that we face in communicating with extraterrestrials is finding something that we have in common. They're not going to understand English or French or Swahili. So what language do we use?
Developing a way for two entirely different species to communicate sounds like an impossible task. But believe it or not, the first steps towards this life-altering exchange are already happening, right here on planet Earth.
If another civilization in another galaxy really were listening, they might have very different sensory equipment and very different ideas of the universe. So if there ever is communication with extraterrestrial intelligence, being able to talk with animals is the kind of groundwork that might make that possible.
By looking at the frequency of certain sounds of animals, we can show that they're intelligent. And so one goal is to be able to decode their own language. And when we do this, we'll open up a whole world of communication that I think will be quite a shock.
Talking to animals? It may sound like a far-out idea, but keep in mind, what separates them from us might be less than you think.
We're animals too, and we may not be the wisest of the animals.
Dr. Penny Patterson is a world-renowned animal psychologist. In the early 1970s, she embarked on a groundbreaking study that would change the way people think about interspecies communication.
I was introduced to Coco at the San Francisco Zoo. Coco was 6 months old. And about 6 months later, I said, can I do a language study with Coco?
At the time, scientists were just beginning to explore the idea of animal communication. And they were making startling discoveries.
Studies have shown that gorillas have natural gestures. About 100 different ones have been identified. So when I met Coco, she was already gesturing.
Dr. Patterson took this natural ability one step further and began teaching Coco a modified version of American Sign Language.
I would need to figure out what she was saying. She would need to figure out what I was saying. And with repetition, we got it. Although it seems like she was quicker at it than we were.
How about eye? All right. How about ear? All right. Okay. You're doing real good, Coco.
In just a few years, Coco's vocabulary grew to nearly 1,000 different signs.
Have you been looking at the gorilla? Gorilla Coco love.
It was an astonishing breakthrough, providing one of the first glimpses into a high-functioning, non-human mind.
Oh my goodness, a big kiss.
And demonstrating that communication between two different species is possible.
Here's what exhale means. You're beautiful, Coco.
Encouraged by the possibilities, scientists have begun diving even deeper into the animal mind. And while they search for a way to unlock the secret of animal communication, they are also laying the groundwork for discoveries that can someday help us talk to aliens.
I was always really interested in what happens if we ever come face to face or face to tentacle with an extraterrestrial. One of the things that I think is really critical is that we try to understand what they perceive. And for us with dolphins, like with aliens, we're trying to find some common ground. They're not extraterrestrials, but they're non-terrestrials having evolved in a totally aquatic environment.
Dr. Diana Reese is a cognitive psychologist and marine mammal scientist. Like Dr. Patterson, she has dedicated her life to studying the inner workings of non-human minds.
This is a 2.5-year-old dolphin named Bailey, and Bailey is watching herself in a mirror. She's showing self-awareness. She recognizes what she's seeing is herself, and she's using this mirror as a tool to watch herself playfully spin. Dolphins have the second largest brain relative to their body size of any species on this planet next to us. So what's so fascinating for me as a scientist is to ask, what are the dolphins doing with this big, complex brain?
To answer this question, Dr. Reese pioneered a study that would help bridge the gap between dolphin and human language.
This was the original keyboard that we gave the dolphins, and we created an underwater keyboard that has a variety of visual symbols on it. If they hit a key, they would hear a computer-generated whistle, and they would get a particular object or an activity. This is underwater footage of Delphi and Pan, the two dolphins we worked with. This is Pan hitting for ball, and he hears and gets a ball.
By giving them control over what sounds and objects they could choose,
Delph hits for ball.
Dr. Reese made a breakthrough in how the dolphins learned to communicate.
They would mimic the computer-generated sounds. They actually broke the sounds apart or segmented those sounds, much like what young children do. When they heard the ball whistle, they repeated the end of the ball whistle first. The next time they heard it, they imitated the very beginning of the ball whistle. And then they did it perfectly the next time. We didn't train it. We weren't reinforcing what they were doing. They were doing it step by step.
When Dr. Reese and her team looked at how the dolphins were producing the signals, they gained another startling insight.
We realized they would start expanding it or contracting it in duration or in frequency. And that's very much like what we do with language. We can say fire, or fire, 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 and we still recognize that. So this is the first stage of decoding. We need to know these kinds of things if we're going to communicate. And that's really exciting for the future.
By following the same process of establishing a common language system, Dr. Vakoch and the team at METI believe that they too can successfully communicate. And they are already using this knowledge to transmit intergalactic messages with the hope of receiving a response.
When we think about sending messages into space, One possibility is to send the extraterrestrials everything on the entire internet. But there's one big problem. What does it all mean? So at METI, we take just the opposite approach, picking a few key points and explaining them very carefully, very precisely.
Like Dr. Patterson and Dr. Rees, the team at METI is looking for a common language through which they can communicate.
The one thing we're guaranteed to have in common with any civilization that can pick up our radio signals is an understanding of basic math and science. If you don't know something as simple as 4 divided by 2, you're not going to be able to build a receiver to pick up our radio transmissions. So that's where we begin our interstellar messages. We start by sending radio signals of different durations, and then we'll talk about them in math. We don't need to be Einstein to do this. You can describe the curve of a radio wave with a binary system, 1s and 0s.
METI encodes the numbers into the radio signals and uses them to show the shape of the wave over its complete 360-degree cycle.
Once we communicate some basic concepts of how radio waves function, that's the key to describing something that's more essentially human, what we sound like. Hello, universe. We're sending greetings from people around the world in their own voices. Hello, universe. We translate them into radio waves and send them to the stars. Hello, universe. Hello, universe. We also describe what the universe is made of. 1, 2. The periodic table describes the composition of the universe by explaining different chemical elements in terms of how many protons they have in their nucleus. 29. And it does it simply by counting. As long as aliens can follow our counting, they'll understand. So that's what we're doing at METI. And it may just be the approach that leads to first contact.
So what happens if someday an alien life form does make contact with us? Will they recognize our intelligence?
Hello, universe.
Or could they have just as much difficulty understanding us as we have understanding other species here on our planet? In the search for intelligent life, it's impossible to know what may lie beyond our own galaxy. But perhaps in thinking about how we might interact with extraterrestrials, we will also realize that making contact is only the beginning. It's what we learn through this communication that will ultimately shape how other life forms see us and how we see them.
When we think about a close encounter with another, often we see it just from our point of view. If we think about it from their perspective, they're sort of in the same place we are. They're probably actively trying to figure out how to communicate back or what we're about.
Okay, let's do an F word. How about fruit? Very good.
I, like everyone else, thought that we were the top of the chain. We were the smartest, we were the best. But I have witnessed things
You love.
that have enlightened me.
A few years into her study, Dr. Patterson introduced another gorilla named Michael to the program. Like Coco, he was taught a modified version of American Sign Language. Dr. Patterson believes he used it to describe a devastating event that he experienced in the wild.
I just said, tell me about your mother. And then he launched into a narrative about what happened to her. He had witnessed his mother being killed, basically, for bushmeat. That just put a mark on his soul.
It's really unclear the level of complexity we may discover. We already know these animals are highly intelligent. I would hope that we use that knowledge to protect them.
If and when we meet aliens, I think it will certainly make us rethink how we view other species on our planet, and also how we view humanity.
Hello, universe.
One of the great challenges we face is being open to new possibilities. If we do get a message from extraterrestrials and can understand it, it'll give us a completely different perspective on who we are.
We don't know what will happen, but it will be a defining event in our history, realizing that we are not the only game in town.